In Geometry Dash, there are lots of levels released every single day, and they're all fairly unique, typically boasting one of the many styles of decoration a level can use. Of course, you have classic styles like glow and design, but one in particular stands out for having one of the most fascinating and polarizing histories of all time, the modernistic style. Through years of advancements of an entire community, and from the ashes of a deficit in uniqueness, came along the most popular form of level the world has ever seen. The looks of levels when Geometry Dash first came out were mostly very similar. After all, at that point, there were barely any objects to build with. Few remarkable variations in style at all happened until later in the life of the game, with updates like 1.4 through 1.8. I won't go into the details of each update here, since most levels from then would fall under either design or maybe atmospheric. For the most part, even into 1.9, Geometry Dash levels were like this. That is, until 2.0. On August 17th, 2015, the 10th update for the game was released, named Update 2.0, boasting the longest wait for an update yet, with a total wait time being around 6 months. Update 2.0 introduced moving objects, which would completely change the way levels were made forever. The majority of custom levels during the first days of 2.0 were quite bad, poorly utilizing the newly added move triggers, making for some outright ugly and unplayable levels for today's standards. However, levels were not always destined to be this way. People would eventually get good with the move trigger and all of the other groundbreaking features 2.0 had to offer. With the new, virtually endless possibilities of 2.0, the game was subject for big change. One of these changes, anyway, would become modernistic. To begin, we must find the very first level we would classify as modernistic by today's standards. A large number of levels during the first months of 2.0 had parts with simplistic block design and backgrounds like Electronic Super Joy or Colorful Echo, but nowadays most people refer to this style of level to be early Effect, and not quite modern. However, the stories of modern and Effect are very much intertwined. Eventually, Effect broke away from early Effect and adopted many traits of modern, thanks to development by people like Equinox and even Serpunge. Similarly, Modern would eventually adopt the semi-complex aspects of effect levels into their backgrounds. The distinction between the two styles has to be made to sharpen the line between the genres back in the day. Early effect levels are often characterized as using complex, typical designs with glow decoration paired with a simplistic custom background and flat block design. Hundreds of iconic levels use this format, and technically, levels like Next Yesterday by Ilrel still use this style. Looking at levels like these alone, with their stray towards aspects of simplicity, it's clear to see that eventually Modern would come to exist. And the first person to do so would be a name most of you probably haven't heard in a very long time. That person's name is Tigrisek. Tigrisek was a controversial Polish player prominent before 2.0. He is most known nowadays for his various Mega Collab parts, including one in the Ultimate Phase and in Phobos, with him being the original verifier of the latter. Well, in November of 2015, a few months after 2.0 released, Tigrisek would release this. Boasting bright colors, easy gameplay, and most importantly, flat textureless designs, Minimalism by Tigris marks the very first true modernistic level in history that we could find. The level did quite well, which makes sense considering it was the first time Geometry Dash had seen something like this, and it is currently his most popular level. With an influx of attention to this revolutionary style, people were sure to follow in his footsteps, and that's exactly what they did. The next modern level would be created by one of the three quote-unquote fathers of modern, Galvatron. Galvatron began garnering traction in 2.0, making the typical early effect style levels. However, on March 12th, 2016, he uploaded Drift to the servers, and it revolutionized the way Modern would look forever. Custom portals, flat single-color designs, neat moving custom backgrounds, this level was the definition of groundbreaking. It received monumental praise for being extremely polished and unique. Nearly every single aspect of this level influenced every single Modern level after it, even today. The next most important simplistic level to be released would be made by Equinox, the second father of modernistic. His story is quite similar to Galvatron's, with Equinox being more of an early effect and effect creator, but on May 15th, 2016, he released Refresh, a fully modernistic level. The level is bouncy and exciting, with refreshing visuals and clean backgrounds. However, one part in particular is especially important, the first part. Noticeably bland, using only grayscale and a mediocre background. However, this gray modern style would be one of the mainstay aspects of many modern levels to come. As for Equinox, he was one of the first to combine the clean visuals of modern with trippy and complicated visuals, something frequently found in effect levels these days. I won't cover him much more in this video since apart from Refresh, he made no further large contributions to modern as a style. When talking about modernistic, one person reigned supreme as more prominent than any other for his time. Well, this person was about to release their newest level inspired by the likes of Refresh and Drift both. This level was Resolute by none other than Optical. Before this, Optical was a typical but fairly well-known design creator, having 9 featured levels to his name. Looking at it, one can see clear inspiration from the 2 previous levels, some similar colors, backgrounds, designs, custom orbs, and even structuring. For the most part, the only thing in this level we haven't seen yet is Optical. And to say the least, we'll be seeing more of him. The 3 aforementioned levels, Drift, Refresh, and Resolute, are likely the most important levels in modernistic history. All 3 of these levels were extremely influential in the community. From here, Galvatron would continue with modern as well as effect, and Equinox would become one of the most consistent and influential effect creators of all time, further showing just how intertwined the histories of these styles are. Optical, however, would choose a different path. After Resolute released on May 15, 2016, Optical would begin building a new level in a similar style named Leap of Faith, in collaboration with iZinadash. This level would also become very popular, currently sitting at well over 100,000 downloads. A few weeks later, on September 15, 2016, Optical's collaboration with Philipsman named Tranquility released. Another level using similar color schemes and modernistic visuals, boasting a whopping 2 million downloads. To say the least, Optical had been flung into the creating scene headfirst with his revolutionary creating style. He was going to be popular for as long as he continued creating. At this point though, Optical had only one modern solo level, being Resolute. Well, a mere 2 days after Tranquility released, Optical released Ace, his new solo level. Ace did pretty well, was featured quickly, and gained 20,000 downloads rather fast. 4 days after that, Optical released his collab with Tizoki named Arcadia. Using visuals slightly more rainbowy than usual, it stood out for being clean and adventurous in its wildly varying colors. A week later, Optical released Focus to critical acclaim, having clean transitions and nice colors and theming. This level pushed the term modernistic further into everyone's heads, with it being plastered right in the middle of the ballpark's background. It was around here when the term for the style began to shift from simplistic or minimalistic to modernistic. On November 3rd, he released his second collab with Zinadash, named Wanderer. He had the community vote on which player did a better job in the level, with Optical coming out the winner. A couple days later, he released Dynamo, a collab with Chanel 6 and Victorinox. Afterwards, on November 15th, he released Chargeless, using a neat blending trick throughout the level, but the level itself was criticized for being lazy. As you can probably tell, Optical was on a roll. In merely 3 months, he managed to push out 9 levels and a few more collabs on other accounts, gaining 14 creator points, an absolutely blistering pace. He was making quick work of getting into the top 100, and he wasn't going to stop anytime soon. He released 2 more levels in December, Phoenix and Identity, both of which were featured, boasting a good amount of downloads. He also took part in the level Scape with Thomartin, making for 11 levels in 4 months. It gets redundant to comment on the impact of every single one of his levels, since each one of them pushed forward the standard of modern and influenced how ones after it would be made, even if just a little bit. Countless different trends, be it in color, design, movement, or even font, were mostly spearheaded by Optical. The famous fonts he used in nearly all of his levels that he participated in, and more, almost all of them, apart from a few, were made by Optical, and are now nothing short of iconic. The color scheme of gray and rainbow? Sure, it wasn't created by Optical, but he took the trend and revolutionized it, keeping it fresh with uses of different tricks in many of his levels. Every level he made further influenced the way Geometry Dash levels as a whole could look. Optical was undoubtedly the king of modern. The day is January 16th, 2017. Everything seems pretty normal. Optical had already released a new level this year on the 2nd, being Crisp, made for the new free mobile game Rodtop had released back in December, named Geometry Dash World. However, Geometry Dash was about to change forever on this day, January 16th. That was the day that Update 2.1, the newest and long-awaited update to the game, would release. 2.1 introduced many things. Some notable features included the rotate trigger, dash orbs, a new main level, and most importantly, of course, the spider game mode. Creators and players everywhere were alight with excitement in anticipation of the now broken barriers of what could be made in this game. Each edition 2.1 added was adopted and utilized by creators, and it was nothing short of expected of Optical to release something big following the new possibilities. A mere 4 days after 2.1 came out, Optical released Scent, a level showing an early mastery of many of the newly introduced aspects of 2.1. The community was blown away by the execution and understanding of everything seen in the level, particularly Optical's understanding and use of the rotate trigger. Every part uses the rotate trigger in some way, whether it be in the backgrounds or in the blocks. All of this gave Scent one of the first epic ratings in the game. After this, Optical released 4 more levels, being Veto, Glyph, Aloft, and Verve, from January to April, proving yet again that his grasp on the modernistic genre was firm. Each of these levels furthered the use of rotate triggers in his level, as well as utilizing the new round blocks introduced in 2.1 for a much smoother look. Optical's first 5 2.1 levels, combined with his good understanding of all movements, truly set the standard for how many modern levels would begin to look following the new update. In the meantime, however, no insanely influential levels came to be for the most part. Even yet, Optical had big plans for things. One of those things ended up being Modernistacy, a Discord server for everything modernistic in Geometry Dash. He opened it in late July of 2017, but it wasn't until September 25th of that same year that the server would begin holding weekly mini-contests, or WMCs for short. The legacy of the WMCs are not to be forgotten. These contests gave participating creators a theme or limitation to build to, and every Monday, Optical would release a video containing the highest ranking entries from that contest to his YouTube channel. Subsequently, the entire participating mass's creativity and skill improved, making for a brewing pot of talent. While fairly lighthearted and overall positive and for fun, the WMCs are still an undeniably important part of not just modernistic history, but the history of creators of today as a whole. This is where many of the most popular and talented modern creators of all time got their start, and where some extremely important friendly rivalries took place. I won't go over all of it since it would run on for way too long, but I will note some of the most important parts of it. The first few contests laid the groundwork for what was to come. In the first 4, we saw names like Digitalite, Tho Martin, Balonzik, RNBW, and Sputniks, who all made impressive entries in various themes that earned them a spot in Optical's videos. Week 5 was the biggest and most influential week yet. Firstly, there were enough good entries to warrant 10 different entries featured at once, and this would become the standard, showing just how popular these WMCs were getting. This week's theme was to create a set of custom portals like many modernistic levels used. Placing at number 10 was Whitehead, who we will see become a big competitor in the coming weeks. However, more importantly was number 9, a creator named Xenoteric. Before becoming one of the most skilled creators of all time, Xenoteric started out in Optical's WMCs without a creator point to his name, making pretty good entries. Week 6 and 7 went by like others previous, only garnering more and more eyes, as well as participants. RNBW, Balonzik, and others appeared, as well as Holloworth, who back then went by Holloworth 13, as well as Wictord, Loco, Whitehead, and Victorinox, just to name a notable few. Week 8 arrived on November 13th, 2017, with Xenoteric taking first place, boasting an extremely good entry, showing immense talent artistically from him. This win marks the beginning of the rise of Xenoteric in the WMCs. In the next coming weeks, Xenoteric would place or place highly in nearly every single one, all the while becoming one of the most talented creators in the process. From the first 10 weeks, we can ease up on detailing each one individually since, for the most part, important competitors and big names stayed the same. From there though, apart from one contest, nothing extremely took place in the WMCs that we haven't already seen. Xenoteric continued his nearly unrivaled reign, and Modernistacy ended up becoming a server dedicated to the WMCs. However, the most important WMC of all time was just about to take place. WMC number 22 posed a big challenge to make a level with only 1,000 objects. From this challenge alone, levels like Clank by Xenoteric, Optimized by Digitalite, Darling by Shemo, and a few others came to be. This challenge is essentially the beginning of minimalism as an actual style, as well as what mostly started the low object trend, along with the level Optical released a week prior unrelated to the challenge. But of course, Modern was the perfect fit for a level trend of making something with as little as possible. After all, Modern as a style has always accentuated itself with its simplicity in designs and straightforward nature. It was basically inevitable for minimalism to spring from it. Anyway, This WMC had arguably the most entries out of any contest thus far, and it influenced many people to try this out for themselves. However, this event would also spark something else to come to fruition very soon. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, we still have a few WMCs to talk about, but not for very long. I'd like to take a brief moment to mention one entry in particular, Xenoteric's entry into WMC 26. The goal was to create a transition, and as to be expected of Xeno, he went all in and made this. It's nothing incredibly influential, but for its time, it was likely the most impressive effect ever made. Scale effects were much more sparse back then, and no complicated scale effects like this one has really ever been seen since. This effect blew away every single person involved with the WMCs and completely cemented Xenoteric as one of the best creators of his time. From that, the WMCs were nearly done. Optical only went on to host 2 more WMCs, being 30 and 31. It went out with a bang, however, with RNBW, Loco, and Xenoteric all placing highly. Speaking of which, most of the notable winners featured in the WMCs are some of today's biggest and most talented creators. It's truly remarkable to have looked at all of the WMCs and seen all of these household names be listed all the way back then. As for Optical, he stated that he was taking a break with the WMCs, and that was all we ever saw of them. Similar things ended up being hosted, such as the Gyre WMCs and most notably Sputnik's GDMCs, which had a similar reign, but Optical's original WMCs were done for good, mostly because of one very important thing. On February 16th, 2018, Optical released a video titled #Levolution. In the comment section of the video, he ranted about an issue he saw with the community sparked within him after WMC 22 took place, which I'll remind you hosted the challenge of building a level with less than 1k objects. The entire rant is quite long, but I'll condense what he said down into an easier to understand bit and highlight some important parts. Join Levolution now! Strive to make unique levels that are enjoyable to play, don't take months to make, and don't lag, was the motto Optical pinned to the trend. Levolution stemmed from a growing frustration in Optical that big projects took too much time to make, caused too much lag, and were inevitably filled with clustered designs. Secondly, he felt a lack of simpler, smaller projects from creators new and old that had good gameplay, simple designs, and inherently would leave room for creators to have better ideas, according to him. On its own, it seems like an alright idea to have an influx of levels that were not as crazy and took less time and effort to create. However, the problem lied underneath. Inherently, this idea supported quantity over quality, and the argument itself had a lot of logical errors and things that were not explained particularly well. The community was promptly split in half, one side being supporters of the trend, mostly consisting of tired creators who either hated the community pressure or were tired of the grind to put out things they were proud of to no results. The other side was obviously people who were against it, consisting mostly of players who didn't want the quality of the entire level base to drop. There were outliers, of course, players who supported it and creators who were against it, but regardless, the community was torn. Debate and feelings of ill will resonated within the entire community from the trend. GD had never seen something as controversial as this before now. To kick off the trend, Optical released his first Levolution level, Emit, to vicious backlash from a fairly big amount of the community, even from people who previously supported Levolution. The level was considered lazy by an unfortunate number of people. However, an almost equal number of people liked the level and furthered their support for the trend, making the gap in the community wider. Emit only made things messier and more livid. On February 18th, 2018, Optical released an elaboration on the trend, explaining a few things and asking those in debate to be civil. People mostly still held their opinions, with the same argument being made. Supporters wanted to see more levels from their favorite creators and wanted to not have to spend their talent working on one level for months on end. People against it preferred making things they were proud of and did not want to see the quality of creators' levels take a dip because of a focus on minimalism and creativity rather than execution of that creativity. All in all, it was a very messy situation, and Optical frankly didn't do a good enough job properly explaining it to begin with. Who knows how much better it could have been received if he made his points clear from the beginning. Optical would go on to make 4 more levels in the name of Levolution, being Ivy, Boop, Keep, and Divine, each subsequent one being better and better received as the concept of Levolution became clearer. Finally, on April 7th, 2018, Optical released his final video on the trend, being an in-depth explanation of the trend, stating that the goal was more to create unique levels that have good gameplay and not a ton of objects. He stated that creators should do whatever they want and that Levolution was an option, not a dictation. From here, the hate began to simmer down, along with the support of Levolution as a trend. Some big levels were made with Levolution in mind, such as The Lost Existence by Jonathan G.D., which is a perfect example of a good Levolution level. It follows precisely what Optical said Levolution should be. Of course, there were also bad Levolution levels, but it went to show that Levolution couldn't be a shield against the quality of a level. But who am I to comment on it? My job here isn't to critique anything. People will always have opinions on your levels, no matter what challenge or restrictions they had in mind. All in all, the community essentially unanimously agreed to just let everyone do whatever they want, without care to what quality the levels were. Levels still get hate, obviously, but more and more unique and abnormal levels have become much more accepted in the community from the decision. Looking back, Levolution obviously split the community into two fiery sides, but in the end, it mostly turned out well. Nowadays, Levolution is nothing more than a nearly forgotten memory of the past, and a telling sign of how the community felt towards creating at the time. Optical began to create a mix of the two, from simplistic and eventually into the more traditional, fairly complex levels he was known for. When he quit in 2019, he left the game a very respected creator. Levolution was somewhat of a turning point for not only the modernistic style, but the community as a whole. From here, you'll begin to notice a shift in the way levels were made. Following Levolution, modernistic levels would begin to garner a reputation of being lazy and stale. They were one of the most popular styles at the time in mid-2018, and people were growing tired of seeing them. The community was looking to new, energetic, and grandiose levels to play. Something had to change if Modern was to keep any sort of relevance in the community. On March 12th, 2018, a level would be released onto the Geometry Dash servers named Parallel. This level would present a very interesting take on the modernistic style, with nice highlights, decent use of glow, and good colors. The name of the creator of this level might even ring a bell, because they were about to become the most influential and talented modern creator of all time. Knots is an extremely popular modern creator, currently sitting at 102 creator points. Named the King of Modern by Woolsey and winner of the Best Modern Creator in the 2021 GD Awards, Knots without a doubt dethroned Optical as the new King of Modern. But just how did he get here? After all, back in the day, he was merely a glow creator. Well, allow me to tell you. Knots, back in 2018, was a mostly established creator. He had a few epics under his belt as well as a handful of features, but he was a glow creator, up until he released his modern art hybrid level Harbinger, which was released in September of 2017. From there, he began creating levels in his own recognizable way. He was garnering quite a few features, but Parallel was his most polished level yet, as we've previously seen. He had no plans of stopping. On May 4th of 2018, he released 12 AM, another really polished modern level, getting epic once again. At this point, Optical was still creating levels, and Knots was just on the rise. However, Optical would begin slowing down his output of levels, and by late 2018, a shift in focus was inevitable. Over the rest of 2018, Knots would release a total of 10 levels, each and every one of which to monumental praise and an epic feature. He quickly developed his now instantly recognizable style, filled to the brim with original ideas and flawless execution. You might look at this and wonder if it's even modern at this point. Well, you wouldn't be completely mistaken. Knots began a new era of modern levels. Looking at his levels, you can tell they're definitely modernistic, but they still managed to look so new and different to the modern levels we are used to seeing. Beginning in mid-2018 and developing further from there is the merging of modern with the abstract design trend of 2018. A large portion of his backgrounds mimic the circular, flat, and abstract features of a typical PowerPoint presentation. This artistic style gained mass popularity in 2018. It has a vast number of aspects such as color choice, patterns, geometrical shapes, and many more complex things that I don't understand because I'm not an artist. Simply looking at some example photos, which I can't actually show because of copyright, you can begin to draw instant parallels between what Knots created through the year 2018 and the abstract design trend. The style was simplistic and open to interpretation, meaning that it was vastly different to the bland, mostly samey modern levels of old. Knotts may have not known it, but he had nearly single-handedly begun the neo-modern era. But that wouldn't happen for a little while. After all, he's only made 2 levels in his unique style. Where we're at, Optical is still mostly in his prime, and the classic modernistic style was still as prevalent as ever. But little by little, Knotts would grow and Optical would fall. In the meantime, some pretty important levels would come out. On the 7th of May, an up-and-coming creator named ZenderGame would release his breakout level, Boss 3 Electro, inspired by the likes of Stubby Pinata. This level would absolutely blow up, since it was extremely rare for an unknown creator to release a level of extremely high quality, let alone a boss fight level with those traits, since boss fights had a reputation for being short, lazy, and uninspired at this time. To say the least, Boss 3 Electro was none of those things. This level would get an upload firstly from Partition, and then an upload from Nexus later, the latter of which got nearly 2 million views. Both of these videos brought the level, as well as ZenderGame himself, loads of positive attention, and the entire community patiently awaited his next masterpiece. In the summer, Knotts would end up releasing 4 more solo levels, Melody at Pause, Exit, Slanted, and Cirrus, all of which got epic, gaining him 12 CP in only 2 months. Knotts' skill improved greatly between Melody at Pause and Where the Sky Fades, and many people noticed it. Unanimous praise was being given to Knotts and his levels. ZenderGame, in the meantime, was working on a new project with his newfound community-wide attention. On October 4th, 2018, he released Boss 4 Laser Eye to massive praise for its fun gameplay and fluid movements. The newest installment to ZenderGame's Boss series had arrived, fully meeting expectations. On YouTube, it didn't find as much views as Boss 3 Electro did, but Boss 4 Laser Eye was undoubtedly a step up in every way. Before the year ended, Knotts would release 3 more levels, each getting epic. Those were Sway in September, Somnambulous Journey in October, and Trigger Happy in November. Briefly, I'd like to take a closer look at Trigger Happy, one of his most popular levels at the time. This level specifically provides a great example of Knotts' abstract modern design style. Every background is this sleek, geometric pattern frenzy, quite fitting to the description of the abstract design trend. If anything, this level in particular brought this style to the most in the community, and cemented it as the new biggest trend in modern. And that brings us to the end of 2018. At the beginning, Knotts was nothing more than a glow creator, and by the end, he was one of the most well-respected and liked creators the game had ever seen. He still had room to grow and improve, of course, but by 2019, he was no longer the unnoticed creator that he once was. Starting out 2019 strong, Knotts released Lollapalooza, his first demon. It reached decent success, being one of his most popular levels to date. Just a couple weeks later, on February 7th, ZenderGame would release his 5th installment in the Boss series, Boss 5 Devourers. The level received typically high praise for his vast improvement in style, colors, movements, gameplay. All things considered, this was a phenomenal level. With everything Zender released, his popularity, and most importantly, his skill, would grow. Xenoteric, the king of WMCs, would release a level, being his best to date, named LXIX. This level was impressive even for today's standard and gained him an epic rating. Interestingly, at the time of release, June 2nd, 2019, the level was already a year old. Who knows just how much more influential this level could have been if Xeno released it when he first started work on it. On June 18th, 2019, Optical released Avid, his final level, and with it, he left Geometry Dash for good. The level was extremely polished and well made, certainly his best work. Optical left behind him the most influential reign any creator in the game has ever had. With 101 creator points to his name and an entire catalog of influential and important levels under his belt, he was gone, his legacy never ever to be forgotten. But as I said earlier in the video, the hole he left in the modern community would come to be filled, and of course, Knotts would truly be the one to do this. When Optical was gone for good is when Knotts entered the scene as not just an extremely talented modern creator, but the extremely talented modern creator. From here, the reign of Knotts truly begins. That summer, Knotts would release 4 more levels: Neon Dusk, Breakfast Frenzy, Lowercase, and Event Boundary. These 4 levels, in my opinion, are where Knotts truly began to take off. In each of these levels that Viperin uploaded, he cited Knotts as one of the best creators in the game, modern or otherwise. It was at this point Knotts also gained recognition for having the longest epic streak the game had ever seen, with it at this time being a mere 17. Interestingly, Lowercase was a level that existed entirely for a coin in Event Boundary, whose coins are notoriously difficult to get. The fact that an entirely separate level is the answer to unlocking a coin in another is mind-blowing, and shows just how much effort Knots puts into his levels. In August of 2019, the other extremely talented modern creator on the rise, Zendergame, would put out his masterpiece level, the Eschaton, the 6th level in his critically acclaimed boss fight series. The Eschaton is a level clocking in at a whopping 5 minutes long and a complete end to the boss series. The level sports Zender's now nearly perfected style and multiple insanely well detailed boss fights, making for one of the greatest levels of all time. Zender's mastery of movements and colors are a sight to behold and set the bar high. All of Zender's boss fight levels, but this one particularly, would go on to influence basically every single boss fight level, and every modern level to an extent to come after it in some way or another. Simply in his mastery of smooth movements, great colors, and color combinations in general, motivated creators all across the game to try and perfect their style to the same level that Zendergame could his. The upcoming year or so marks one of the most booming times for the modern style as a whole. Many creators, old and new, would rapidly evolve the modern style into ways we've yet to see, ever. The meteoric rise of the abstract style Knots would bring forth, as well as the complete abandonment of the modern ways of old, will become prominent in this absolutely revolutionary time period for modern levels. Knots would begin in November of 2019, releasing Rush Hour, his second demon level. It received a tremendous amount of hate, I'm joking. Of course, it was received incredibly well and amassed 500,000 downloads rather fast. The gameplay was great, the decoration was stunning as per usual, and Knots came out of it with more respect and 3 more creator points under his belt. Succeeding this, a popular modern creator named Neshfa would release a level named Ambu, an extremely well polished level with phenomenal colors and effects, such as the waves featured in a few parts. This level alone propelled Neshfu from well-known to famous very quickly thanks to the level's immense polish. Traditional modern with its flat, boring colors and meh effects were now a thing of the past. A few weeks later, Xenoteric would release his best level to date, Suritet, a level that truly showcases Xenoteric's boundless artistic and mechanical talent for the game. It got epic and held the first place on the featured list for many weeks, and later was nominated for the best modern level of 2020. This level, especially since it was released soon after Ambu, further established the death of the tired and boring trends of old modern levels, breathing new life into traditional modern with gorgeous colors and smooth effects across the board. Two creators of traditional modern levels that we would see become popular during this time are Hollowworth and RNBW, two familiar names from the WMCs. A good example level from each are Vacuum by Hollowworth and Chalcedony by RNBW. Comparatively to the likes of Suritet or Ambu, these levels are somewhat basic, but the level of polish and knowledge and colors and movements are close to the same, and undoubtedly better than older, more basic, modern levels. In the meantime, Knots released 2 levels, being Intermission and Comatose Dreamscape, both of which clocked in around 2 minutes long, the latter of which was nominated for the best modern level of 2020. Both, of course, got epic, continuing his streak even further. In particular, I'd like to take a look at the contrast between them. Comatose Dreamscape has a distinct black and white color scheme, with hints of desaturations of other colors as well, and the whole level is in his iconic abstract effect-driven modern style. Throughout the level, there are different varied backgrounds with many elements of the abstract design trend Knots has grown so synonymous to. On top of this, the level boasts phenomenal transitions laced with effects between each part, making for a very cohesive level front to back. This level, however, is where I think Knots truly developed the style the most. Intermission was much more based around designs, art, colors, and shading, with many parts having beautiful colors and engaging block designs and animations. Comatose Dreamscape, on the other hand, consists of almost entirely flatly colored blocks with no shading. This obviously was done to shift focus to the engaging visuals in the background. This new style, brought forth by Comatose Dreamscape, would be the primary influence for a lot of phenomenal modern levels to come after it. From here, however, his levels began to take a shift from this abstract-centric style to one much more akin to what we've seen in Intermission, his almost entirely art-based level. Of course, his levels are still chock full of effects and abstract designs, but at the same time they incorporate much of the artistic skill Knots showed off in Intermission. Knots' style likely evolved the most from these 2 levels, now being a solid blend of both prominent aspects. From here, his levels incorporate lots of great art pieces and even more mesmerizing abstract designs and transitions. Zender Game released a new level around this time as well, named Ultraviolence. It was another boss fight level, receiving unanimous praise for having fun gameplay and phenomenal boss design. Deja vu, anyone? To date, it's one of the most viewed Geometry Dash levels on YouTube, with Nexus's upload of it garnering a total of 3.3 million views. It was also nominated for and won the award for Best Boss Fight Level of 2020. As per usual from Zender Game's levels, every segment of the level had drop-dead gorgeous colors, lighting, and shading, as well as far above average movements and, as I mentioned, sublime boss design. This level will go down in history as one of the greatest boss fight levels of all time, and will surely influence all boss fights for years. Neshfu, in April of 2020, released his new entry-level extreme demon named Aq, with a refreshing modern style. The level was praised for great and fair gameplay and really smooth and unique visuals. It was also nominated for Best Extreme of 2020. In the summer of 2020, Knox will release MO, a collab with Menhu, Empty Rooms, and This Side Up, all of which were good levels with great colors and the likes. And that just about ends one of the most influential periods for Modern. During this nearly year-long period from 2019 to 2020, we've seen the rise of knots and the abstract design styles, as well as the revival of traditional Modern with a refreshing new attitude. However, very, very soon, one level would be made to truly show just how far Modern had come during this time. One very special level made by two very special creators. A level that most people consider to be the best of all time. In November of 2020, two of the most prominent and skilled Modern creators of all time, Zender Game and Knots, teamed up to make an XL Easy Demon named Dreamflower. Rumors spread and previews were shown all up until its full showcase on Zender Game's channel on the 15th of November, to be released in the next 2 days. This level certainly has a lot of excitement around it. Will it live up to expectations? To say the absolute least, it did. Dreamflower released to unanimous praise on November 17th, with an overwhelming majority of people claiming it as the greatest level of all time. And honestly, I can see where they come from with that. It could genuinely be argued that Dreamflower is objectively the best level of all time from a variety of points, but I won't get into that here. Dreamflower is a level filled with great theming and cohesion all around. It's truly beautiful to see two creators come together so seamlessly. On top of that, the level's gameplay is flowy and fun to play, since it's an easy demon. The level is chock full of phenomenal transitions, animations, and colors, you name it. Dreamflower has got it down to a science. Alone, Zender Game and Knots were fantastic creators and masters of their craft, and when they came together, both talents were truly able to shine through and produce something amazing. I could rave on forever about every small aspect of this level that makes it a Modern masterpiece, but I'm sure you can gather as much from simply looking at it. Dreamflower will go down as one of, if not the best level ever made, for likely a very long time. Dreamflower is nominated for Best Modern Level in the 2020 awards and won with over 60% of the votes. Nominated alongside it were Ambu, Suratet, and Comatose Dreamscape, all of which were outstanding levels, showing just how ahead of its time Dreamflower is. At the time of writing this script, it hasn't even been a year since it came out, but by the time I've released this video, it has. But already we've seen it have a huge impact on the creating scene, and I'm sure we will continue to see its impact in years to come. As a level, Dreamflower is a complete representation of the journey from a simple flat rainbow level in 2015 to complete and full works of art made by dumbfoundingly talented people. From the likes of Optical, Kips, and all the way through to people like Zender Game and Knots, Xenoteric and Wictord, RNBW and Hollowworth, and hundreds more talented people working to further what a modern level can be in Geometry Dash. Throughout levels like Resolute, B, Technos, The Eschaton, Rush Hour, Pink Sunrise, and Dreamflower, and from the hard work of some of the most influential and important creators of all time, the modernistic style and the people keeping it alive will never ever be forgotten for having one of the most legendary legacies of all time.